The cream-colored envelope slid across the mahogany table with practiced grace, but I caught the slight tremor in Emily's manicured hand. That tiny shake told me everything I needed to know. My mother-in-law was enjoying this moment far too much. My name is Louisa, and after 7 years of marriage into the Fernandez family, I've learned to read between the lines of every thoughtful gesture. A luxury anniversary cruise, Emily announced, her voice dripping honey. 10 days in the Mediterranean. Harrison, darling, you and your wife must be thrilled. I watched my husband's face carefully as he opened the envelope. His expression remained neutral, practiced. Thank you, Mother. This is generous. The dining room of their mansion felt suffocating. Despite the high ceilings and expensive art, I reached for the cruise documents, noting how Harrison's fingers tightened slightly before releasing them. That's when I saw it. Or rather, didn't see it. The booking is only in Harrison's name, I said quietly, flipping through the papers. The cabin reservation, the dining arrangements, even the shore excursions, all listed under Mr. Harrison Fernandez. Emily's smile widened fractionally. Oh? Must be a clerical error. Though really, dear, does it matter? You'll be together anyway. I felt Harrison's Aunt Christine shift uncomfortably in her chair. She knew. They all knew. It's fine, Harrison cut in before I could respond. We can sort it out when we board. But he didn't meet my eyes. I smiled, the kind of smile I'd perfected over years of similar oversights. Of course. Thank you, Emily. It's a wonderful gift. Later that night in our bedroom, I carefully hung up the designer dress I'd worn to dinner. Harrison was in his study, as usual, probably texting his assistant Talia about some urgent work matter. My phone buzzed. A text from Wallace, my lawyer. Documents received. Timing works perfectly with maritime jurisdiction. Are you sure about this? I typed back, absolutely. 7 years of being erased is enough. They won't see it coming, Wallace replied. Not on their precious cruise. I walked to my closet, pushed aside the row of expensive clothes Harrison's family had chosen for me, and pulled out the false bottom I'd installed months ago. Inside lay a manila envelope stuffed with bank statements, email printouts, photos, and a burner phone. 7 months of evidence, carefully collected while playing the perfect wife. Another buzz from Wallace. Remember, once we serve papers in international waters, they're trapped. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide assets. Your mother-in-law's gift just gave us the perfect stage. I touched the cruise documents on my dresser. Emily had orchestrated this final slight thinking it would break me. Instead, she'd handed me exactly what I needed, a captive audience for what was coming. My phone lit up with a message from Harrison. Working late. Don't wait up. I texted back, of course, honey. Love you. Then I opened my laptop and double-checked my private email. The confirmation from the private investigator was there, along with fresh photos of Harrison and Talia entering a hotel yesterday afternoon. The bedroom door opened, and I quickly switched screens. Harrison walked in, loosening his tie. Mother wants us to have brunch tomorrow to discuss the cruise details. Wouldn't miss it, I said, closing my laptop. Though I should probably check if I can even board, since my name isn't on anything. He sighed that familiar sigh, the one that said I was being difficult. You're making something out of nothing. Again. I watched him walk into the bathroom, remembering how he'd used the same dismissive tone when Emily forgot my birthday last year, and when she told everyone at Christmas that my dress was inappropriate after she'd bought it for me herself. And when she'd changed our anniversary dinner reservations to exclude me, claiming there must have been a mix-up with the names. You're right, I called out, my voice sweet. I'm sure it's nothing. I pulled out my phone and sent one final text to Wallace. Start the countdown. 3 weeks until the cruise. Time to make them remember my name. In the bathroom, I heard Harrison on his phone, speaking quietly, probably telling Talia goodnight. I opened the cruise brochure, studying the layout of the ship that would become my stage. The grand dining hall looked perfect for what I had planned. 7 years of being the good wife who just follows along. 7 years of swallowing my pride while they erased me piece by piece. But they forgot one thing. The quietest person in the room is the one who hears everything. And I've heard enough to burn their perfect world to the ground. The cruise ship loomed above us like a floating city, all gleaming white steel and endless rows of balconies. Emily practically glided through check-in, dropping the family name every chance she got. "We're the Fernandez party," she announced to the 4th staff member in 10 minutes. "The owner's suite." Her eyes flickered to me. "And this is Harrison's wife." The porter's smile wavered slightly as he checked his tablet. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm only showing Mr. Harrison as the registered guest for that suite." Oh dear, another clerical error? Emily's concern was theatrical. "Harrison, darling, sort this out." I watched my husband step forward, credit card ready, while I stood back with our luggage. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Wallace checking in. I'd have to wait to respond. "All fixed," Harrison announced minutes later, handing me a keycard. "Though you really should have brought this up before we boarded." I smiled apologetically. "You're right. Silly me." That evening, while Harrison showered, I sat at the suite's desk with my laptop. The ship's Wi-Fi was excellent, exactly as I'd confirmed it would be when I'd researched this specific cruise line months ago. A soft knock at the door made me quickly switch screens. It was Christine. "Louisa, dear, the family's meeting for drinks in an hour." She peered past me into the suite. "Is Harrison here?" "Showering. I'll tell him." She lingered in the doorway. "I ran into Damien earlier. Harrison's lawyer friend? He's on board too. Such a coincidence." "Really?" I kept my voice neutral. "How nice." "Yes. They're probably discussing that offshore account situation." Christine's eyes widened slightly as she realized what she'd said. "I mean, the business matter. You know how it is with these financial things." "Of course." I smiled warmly. "Would you like to come in?" "Oh no, I should go change. Emily insists we dress properly for dinner. You did bring something appropriate?" After she left, I pulled out my phone and played back the recording of our conversation. Christine's slip about the offshore account was perfect. Exactly the kind of evidence Wallace had said we needed. I opened my suitcase and reached into the hidden compartment I'd sewn into the lining. The small voice recorder was still there, waiting. Damien liked to drink and talk, especially about his clever legal maneuvers. Now I just needed to get it into his suite. At drinks, Emily held court in the ship's most exclusive bar, introducing Harrison to every wealthy passenger within reach. I sat quietly, watching Damien knock back his third scotch while telling stories about law school. "Remember that professor?" He laughed, slapping Harrison's shoulder. "The one who taught us about hiding assets during divorce? Man, that class was valuable." I excused myself to use the restroom, palming the recorder. Damien's suite number was easy to get. I'd heard Emily arranging adjacent rooms for everyone earlier. The service corridor gave me access to his balcony. 10 seconds later, the recorder was tucked behind his desk, and I was back in the hallway. My phone buzzed again. "Wallace. Got your email. Bank records confirm unusual transfers starting 6 months ago. You were right." I thought back to that day, sitting in our home office, when Harrison's email had accidentally synced to my laptop. Seeing messages pop up from Talia. "Miss you already. Last night was amazing. When can we be together for real?" I'd stayed quiet, started gathering evidence, and watched as Harrison grew more careless. The hotel receipts, the business dinners, the way Talia started showing up at family events, always standing just a little too close to my husband. Back in our suite that night, Harrison was on his phone again. "Talia says there's an emergency at the office. She might need to fly out to meet us at one of the ports. Whatever you think is best, honey." I focused on unpacking my clothes, carefully hanging each piece. You know, you could try being more grateful, he said suddenly. This cruise wasn't cheap. I turned to face him. You're right. Thank you for bringing me on your family's cruise. He missed my emphasis on your, just like he missed me sliding my laptop into the room safe. The one containing screenshots of every email, every bank transfer, every hotel booking he thought he'd deleted. My phone lit up with a message from Amy, a friendly passenger I'd met earlier. Drinks tomorrow? You seem like you could use a friend on this boat. I replied yes as Harrison climbed into bed, his back turned to my side as usual. In the darkness, I touched the thin gold wedding band on my finger. 3 more days until we reached international waters. 3 days until the perfect wife disappeared, leaving only truth in her wake. Good night, Harrison, I whispered. He was already pretending to be asleep. Your mother-in-law is something else, Amy said, stirring her mojito. We sat in a quiet corner of the pool deck, watching Emily hold court with her usual crowd of admirers. I've never seen someone correct a waiter's pronunciation of bruschetta quite so aggressively. I sipped my drink, enjoying the afternoon sun. That's nothing. Wait until someone serves her wine at the wrong temperature. And your husband just lets her treat you like that? Harrison learned from the best. I nodded toward where he sat with Damien, both of them pretending to read financial papers while sneaking glances at their phones. The ship's horn sounded, announcing our approach to the next port. Right on schedule, I spotted Talia walking across the deck, designer luggage in tow. She'd done her homework, wearing the exact shade of blue Emily had praised at last month's charity gala. Who's that? Amy asked, following my gaze. Harrison's assistant, here to handle an emergency at the office. I kept my voice light, even as I watched Talia approach our group. Emily's face lit up. Talia, darling, what a wonderful surprise. Harrison stood quickly, too quickly. Mother, you remember my assistant? The Tokyo deal needed immediate attention. I checked my phone under the table, making sure the camera was recording. Every greeting, every touch that lasted a second too long, every glance between my husband and his mistress, all documented. Louisa, Talia nodded at me, her smile perfect. I hope you don't mind me crashing your anniversary cruise. Duty calls. Of course not, I smiled back. Harrison's work is important. Amy's eyebrows shot up, but she said nothing. That evening, I dressed carefully for the captain's dinner, a black dress that Emily had deemed acceptable last Christmas. Harrison and Talia had disappeared for a business meeting, but I knew they'd show up eventually. They always did, just far enough apart to avoid suspicion. More wine? Christine appeared at my elbow, already tipsy. You seem tense, dear. I'm fine. Just tired from all the excitement. Speaking of excitement, did Harrison tell you about the new accounts? The ones in the Caymans? She giggled. Oops. Probably shouldn't mention those. My phone recorded every word. Mrs. Fernandez? A crew member approached. There's a call for you at the purser's desk. It was Wallace. Everything's in place, he said when I picked up the secure line. We've got enough evidence. Are you ready to proceed? I watched Harrison and Talia slip into the dining room through different doors, precisely 3 minutes apart. Yes, tomorrow night. Your husband's been busy, Wallace continued. 3 new transfers this morning. He really thinks he's covering his tracks. He learned from Damien. I lowered my voice. Speaking of which, check your email. The recording from his suite is enlightening. Back at dinner, Emily was explaining the proper way to address household staff. I sat quietly, playing my role one last time. My phone buzzed with a text from Amy. You okay? You've got that look. What look? I texted back. Like you're watching a house burn down and you're holding matches. I smiled into my wine glass. Close, but not quite. I was holding a blowtorch. Harrison leaned over. Mother wants us all to do the sunset yacht excursion tomorrow. Sounds lovely. Will Talia be joining us for that business meeting too? His jaw tightened. You're being ridiculous. Am I? I touched his arm gently. You have lipstick on your collar. That shade of pink isn't my color. He paled slightly, then recovered. You're imagining things. Again. Of course I am. I stood up. Excuse me. I need some air. On the deck, I finally checked the message I'd been avoiding all day. Wallace had sent a simple text. We've got enough. You ready? I typed back, tomorrow night, the grand dining hall. Make sure everyone's served. Amy found me at the railing. Want to talk about it? Ever watch someone dig their own grave? I asked, staring at the dark water below. The trick is to hand them exactly the shovel they want. That's cryptic. I laughed softly. Tomorrow night, come to dinner in the grand hall. Wear something nice. Why? Because some anniversaries deserve a proper celebration. I straightened my dress. And some families need to learn that just the wife can be the most dangerous person at the table. Below us, I could see Harrison and Talia in a shadowy corner of the lower deck, their silhouettes merging. I took a picture, added it to my evidence folder, and smiled. One more night of being the good wife who follows. Then I'd show them exactly where this path led. The florist arranged white roses in the grand dining hall while I watched from the doorway. Everything had to be perfect for tonight's anniversary celebration. Mrs. Madam? The florist hesitated, clearly unsure how to address me after Emily's complicated instructions. Where would you like the card? I handed her the envelope. Inside was a note I'd spent weeks crafting. To my dearest husband, 7 years of memories, each one a lesson. My phone buzzed. Wallace. Papers are ready. Security's been briefed. Remember, once we start, there's no going back. I touched the small USB drive in my pocket, a complete record of Harrison's betrayal, backed up in triplicate. Good, I typed back. How's the account situation? He tried changing the PIN again this morning, as if that matters now. I smiled, remembering Harrison's smug face when he'd first suggested I let him handle all our finances. A wife shouldn't worry about such things, he'd said, Emily nodding approvingly behind him. Amy appeared beside me, coffee in hand. Fancy setup. Sure you want to do this? Watch this, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the banking app and tried to log in. Access denied. He locked you out again? Third time this month. I showed her the screen. He thinks he's being clever. What a prince, Amy muttered. You know, I've been meaning to ask. Why go through with this whole dinner charade? Why not just serve him papers quietly? I led her to a quiet corner. Because some lessons need an audience. Emily spent 7 years making sure I had one for every humiliation. Now it's my turn. Speaking of Emily, Amy nodded toward the entrance where my mother-in-law was inspecting the table settings. Louisa, dear, Emily called out. The placement cards are all wrong. The family should be seated together. I walked over, the picture of compliance. Of course, I'll have them fixed. And do make sure Talia is comfortable. She's practically family now. Emily's smile was razor sharp. Though I suppose you've noticed that? I notice everything, Emily. I matched her smile. That's what good wives do, right? She paused, something flickering behind her eyes. But before she could respond, Harrison and Damien entered, deep in conversation. The offshore transfers are solid, Damien was saying. No one can trace. He stopped abruptly, seeing me. Don't mind me, I said sweetly. Just arranging flowers for our anniversary. Harrison barely glanced at the decorations. Make sure Mother approves everything. Oh, I'm sure she'll find tonight very memorable. I touched the USB drive again. Everyone will. Back in our suite, I laid out my outfit for dinner. A red dress Emily had called attention-seeking last year. Perfect for tonight's performance. My laptop chimed with an email from Wallace, Final confirmation needed. Guest list verified. Legal team standing by. I attached the last few photos I'd taken of Harrison and Talia's business meeting in the ship's library. Green light, I replied. Start at 8 p.m. sharp. A knock at the door made me jump. It was Christine, already swaying slightly from afternoon cocktails. Just checking you're wearing something appropriate tonight, she said, peering at my dress. Emily's very particular about special occasions. Oh, I know exactly what this occasion calls for. I helped her steady herself against the door frame. By the way, how's that offshore account working out? The one you mentioned yesterday? Christine's face went pale. That was just... Don't worry, I patted her arm. Everything will make sense at dinner. After she stumbled away, I got a text from Amy. Your mother-in-law just ordered the staff to rearrange the whole seating plan. Again. Let her, I typed back. Everyone will end up exactly where they need to be. I opened my safe one last time, checking the contents. Divorce papers, financial records, photos, emails, and a small recording device. 7 years of evidence, carefully collected while playing the perfect wife. Harrison's voice came from the bathroom. Have you seen my blue tie? The one you wore to meet Talia yesterday? I kept my tone innocent. It's with the dry cleaning. He appeared in the doorway, frowning. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, honey. Just helping you keep track of things. I closed the safe quietly. That's what wives are for, right? My phone lit up with Wallace's final message. Point of no return. Ready? I looked at Harrison, already back on his phone, probably texting Talia about tonight's seating arrangement. 7 years of playing their game, following their rules, swallowing their insults. Ready? I typed back. Time to serve dinner. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the grand dining hall as guests filtered in. Emily presided over the seating arrangements like a general organizing troops, while Harrison and Talia maintained their careful distance. Him at the bar, her chatting with Damien. Everything's ready, Amy whispered as she passed by. I've got my phone ready to record, just like you asked. I nodded, smoothing my red dress. The USB drive felt heavy in my clutch. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily stood tapping her glass. Before we begin this lovely anniversary dinner, I'd like to say a few words about my son and his wife. The pause before wife was deliberate. Classic Emily. 7 years ago, Harrison brought Louisa into our family. And while she's been... Emily's smile tightened. Different from what we expected, she's learned to follow our traditions. Harrison raised his glass, not meeting my eyes. Talia shifted in her seat. So here's to the happy couple, Emily concluded. May they continue to uphold the family name. Actually, I stood slowly. I'd like to say something too. Emily's smile froze. Harrison's head snapped up. 7 years is a long time to learn lessons, I began, reaching for my clutch. About marriage, about family, about loyalty. I pulled out the envelope of divorce papers and slid them across to Harrison. Happy anniversary, darling. The room went silent. Harrison stared at the envelope like it might bite him. Louisa, Emily's voice held a warning. This is hardly the time. Oh, but it is. I pulled out the USB drive. Because I have a gift for you too, Emily. Would someone mind connecting this to the dining room's display screen? Before anyone could stop her, Amy had already plugged it in. The first image appeared. Harrison and Talia entering a hotel, time-stamped last week. What is this? Harrison stood up, his face red. Evidence, I said calmly. Of the affair you've been having with your assistant. Of the money you've been hiding offshore. Of every little scheme you and Damien cooked up to protect your assets. Damien choked on his wine. You can't prove... I pressed play on my phone. His voice filled the room. The offshore accounts are untraceable. Harrison's wife will never see a dime. Christine gasped. Emily's face turned ashen. But wait, I continued. There's more. Emily, remember all those clerical errors with my name? The forgotten birthdays? The deliberate humiliations? I clicked to the next slide. I kept records of those too. You ungrateful little... Emily started to rise, but Harrison grabbed her arm. Enough, he hissed. We can handle this privately. Like you handled your Tokyo business trips privately? I played another recording, Talia's voice this time, discussing their planned future together. The dining room had become a theater, other passengers openly staring. Someone was filming on their phone. Security, Harrison called out. Remove her. They can't, I smiled. Wallace? Care to explain? My lawyer stepped out from the corner where he'd been waiting. Mr. Harrison, as we're in international waters, and given the evidence of financial fraud we've uncovered, any attempt to remove your wife would be legally unfortunate. You planned this, Emily whispered. All of it. I learned from the best, Mother. I savored the word. You taught me how important appearances are, how the family name must be protected. I clicked to the final slide. Bank statements showing Harrison's hidden accounts. Speaking of protection, the authorities are very interested in these transactions. Damien, I believe your law license might be in jeopardy. Talia stood abruptly. I should go. Stay, I said. You're part of the family now, remember? Emily said so herself. Harrison lunged for the USB drive, but Amy had already removed it. It's too late, I told him. Everything's been copied, distributed, and filed with the relevant authorities. You'll get nothing, he snarled. I made sure. Check your accounts, Wallace suggested mildly. Harrison grabbed his phone, his face draining of color as he tried to log in. What did you do? Frozen, I explained. All of them, even the secret ones. Turns out fraud leaves quite a paper trail. Emily slumped in her chair, her perfect posture finally breaking. The scandal is just beginning. I picked up my clutch. Consider it my parting gift, a lesson in consequences. As I walked toward the door, I paused beside Emily. By the way, my name isn't Harrison's wife. It's Louisa. You might want to remember that. The press certainly will. The last thing I heard was Amy's delighted laugh and the sound of Emily calling for smelling salts. In the hallway, Wallace fell into step beside me. Well done, he said. Where to now? I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in 7 years. I hear the ship's ice bar is excellent. Perfect place to celebrate a divorce. Behind us, chaos erupted in the dining room. But I didn't look back. Some fires are meant to burn everything down. The lock clicked satisfyingly as I secured myself in my suite. Outside, I could hear the whispers and footsteps of passengers discussing what they dubbed the Table 9 showdown. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since I'd left the dining room. Harrison, Emily, Christine. Even Talia had tried calling. I silenced them all except for Amy and Wallace. A sharp knock rattled the door. Louisa! Emily's voice was shrill. Open this door immediately. I don't think I will, I called back, pouring myself a glass of champagne I'd ordered earlier. You vindictive little... She rattled the handle. Do you have any idea what you've done? Exactly what you taught me, I replied calmly. Protect yourself at all costs. Isn't that the family motto? Heavy footsteps approached. Harrison. Security's coming to remove you from the ship. Wallace? I said loudly enough to carry through the door. Care to explain maritime law again? My lawyer's voice came from somewhere in the hallway. Any attempt to forcibly remove Mrs. Louisa from her cabin would constitute illegal detainment in international waters. The cruise line is already aware. You planned everything, Harrison's voice cracked slightly. All of it. The cruise, the timing. No, darling. Your mother planned the cruise. I just played the card she dealt me. I sipped my champagne. By the way, how's Talia handling the spotlight? A new voice joined the chorus. Christine, slurring slightly. Emily's having chest pains. Are you happy now? Chest pains? I laughed. Funny how those happen when accountability shows up. My phone buzzed with a text from Amy. OMG, the video is already trending. Her Table 9 showdown is taking off. I opened social media, and sure enough, shaky footage of my presentation was spreading. The comments were brutal. Rich family gets owned by trophy wife. That mother-in-law had it coming. Another knock, gentler this time. Louisa? It was Damien. Let's discuss this reasonably. There might be a way to keep this quiet. Like the way you kept Harrison's offshore accounts quiet? I played his recorded confession through the door. Or should we discuss your creative accounting advice? You recorded me? His voice rose. That's illegal. Actually, Wallace cut in international waters. Stop saying international waters, Emily shrieked. I heard a commotion outside. Probably ship security arriving to control the scene. My phone lit up with a call from Wallace. Coast Guard's been notified of a potential situation, he said when I answered. They're monitoring to ensure no one tries anything stupid. How are you holding up? Better than Emily, I replied, loud enough to carry. I hear she's having chest pains. A new text from Amy. Holy shit. Some passengers are selling footage to entertainment sites. This is going viral. I walked to the balcony, champagne in hand. Below, I could see passengers gathered, pointing up at the unfolding drama. 7 years of swallowed rage, of perfect smiles and quiet compliance, all exploding in one perfectly orchestrated night. Louisa. Harrison's voice was closer to the door now, softer. Please, we can talk about this. Like we talked about Talia? I asked. Or the money you've been hiding? Or how about all those times your mother erased me while you stood by? Silence. That's what I thought. I took another sip. By the way, Wallace has copies of everything. If anything happens to me, it all goes public. Every email, every photo, every bank transfer. You're bluffing, Emily said, but her voice wavered. I played another recording, Harrison and Talia planning their future together. Am I? More security arrived, dispersing the growing crowd of onlookers. My phone buzzed with news alerts. Cruise ship drama, wealthy family's scandal goes viral, and maritime revenge, wife serves cold justice at sea. Amy knocked on my balcony door. We had connecting rooms, something I'd arranged months ago. I let her in. You're kind of infamous now, she grinned, holding up her phone. Twitter is living for this. Outside, I could still hear Emily demanding action, Harrison trying to damage control, and Damien probably having a career crisis. But in here, watching the sunset over the ocean, I felt nothing but peace. Was it worth it? Amy asked, accepting a glass of champagne. I thought about every fake smile, every subtle dig, every time Harrison chose his mother over me. They spent 7 years teaching me how to destroy someone politely. I raised my glass. I just turned out to be a better student than they expected. A final text from Wallace popped up. Damage is done. No taking it back now. Good, I typed back. Some things shouldn't be taken back. They should be burned down and rebuilt from scratch. Through the door, I heard Emily finally admit defeat. Harrison, call the family lawyer. Now. I smiled. The night was still young, and karma was just getting started. The ship docked under a bright morning sun, but the atmosphere was anything but cheerful. Harrison waited by the gangway, his usually perfect appearance noticeably disheveled. Behind him, Emily sat in a wheelchair, attended by the ship's doctor. Her chest pains had evolved into a convenient crisis. We need to talk, Harrison said, as I approached with my luggage. Privately. Nothing about this is private anymore. I nodded toward the crowd of passengers filming on their phones. How's social media treating you? I can offer a settlement, he lowered his voice. Right now, whatever you want. Wallace appeared at my side. My client isn't interested in negotiations. The prenup, Harrison started, becomes void in cases of infidelity, I finished. You really should have read it more carefully instead of assuming it expired after 5 years. Emily's wheelchair squeaked as she pushed herself forward. You ungrateful little witch. After everything we gave you— Gave me? I laughed. You mean like the cruise booking without my name? Or the birthday party where you told everyone I wasn't invited? Or maybe you mean giving me a front row seat to your son's affair? A town car pulled up to the curb. Wallace opened the door for me. This isn't over. Harrison grabbed my arm. Actually, it is. I pulled free. Check your office email. Your firm's partners are very interested in those offshore accounts, especially the ones hiding client money. His face went pale. Behind him, Damien was having an intense phone conversation, probably with his ethics board. You've destroyed everything, Emily wheezed dramatically. No, you did that. I turned to face her fully. Every time you undermined me, every time you encouraged Harrison's worst behavior, every time you thought your money made you untouchable, you built this moment yourself. My phone buzzed. Amy had sent a meme made from the dining room footage, my face superimposed over various revenge movie posters. You're trending, she texted. Revenge at sea is going crazy. The media's calling, Harrison said desperately. What am I supposed to tell them? The truth? I suggested. Or is that too foreign a concept? Christine stumbled forward, still drunk from last night. The family name. Our reputation. We'll survive, I said. Or it won't. Either way, not my problem anymore. Wallace guided me toward the car. The papers are being processed. Given the evidence, it should be quick. You can't just walk away, Harrison called after me. I turned back one last time. Watch me. Oh, and Talia? I spotted her trying to hide behind a pillar. The assistant position might be opening up soon. I hear the firm's facing some investigations. In the car, I finally let out the scream I'd been holding in for 7 years. It started as a laugh and ended in tears. Not of sadness, but of release. My phone lit up with notifications. News sites were running the story. Cruise ship revenge, wife exposes family's secrets at sea, and maritime marriage meltdown, social media reacts. Your grandmother's cottage is ready, Wallace said, checking his tablet. Everything's been transferred to your name, completely separate from the family assets. Emily must have loved that, I smiled, remembering how she'd sneered at my grandmother's quaint little house when she'd left it to me. A text from Amy popped up with a video link. Someone had set the dining room scene to dramatic movie music. You're a legend, she wrote. Also, karma's already hitting. Harrison's firm is trending for all the wrong reasons. I watched the city pass by through the car window, feeling lighter with each mile between me and the dock. 7 years of playing the perfect wife, of swallowing insults with a smile, of watching Harrison choose his mother over me again and again. Wallace? I asked. Was it worth it? All of it? He showed me his phone, a news alert about Harrison's law firm launching an internal investigation, another about Damien facing an ethics inquiry, and a society page photo of Emily being helped into an ambulance, her perfect image finally cracked. You tell me, he said. I thought about the dining room, about Emily's face when the evidence appeared on screen, about Harrison realizing his carefully constructed world was burning down. They thought money made them invincible, I said. They never expected the quiet one to be taking notes. My phone buzzed one last time. An email from a publisher. Your story has captured the nation's attention. Would you be interested in telling it in full? I smiled, thinking of all the quiet wives out there, swallowing their pride, playing their roles. Maybe it was time for a different kind of family story. Yes, I typed back. I think it's time everyone learned what happens when you push the good wife too far. Behind us, the cruise ship's horn sounded. A final farewell to the family I just burned to the ground. The cottage windows let in streams of morning light as I set up my new home office. My rescue dog, Max, sprawled across the sun-warmed hardwood floors while I unpacked the last box, the one marked Evidence. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Law firm partners vote to remove Harrison following financial investigation. Karma's not just a concept, I muttered to Max. It's a promise. Amy's call came right on schedule. Have you seen the latest? Emily had to step down from 3 charity boards, and Christine is in rehab. Wallace mentioned that. I settled into my grandmother's old writing desk. How's the internet taking it? Your story's being shared in every women's group. You're like a folk hero for trapped wives everywhere. The doorbell rang. Max barked once, then wagged his tail as I opened the door to find Wallace holding a thick manila envelope. It's done, he said, handing it to me. Divorce finalized. The judge was particularly interested in those offshore account records. I led him to the kitchen, where coffee was already brewing. How bad is it for them? Harrison's firm is imploding. Turns out he wasn't just hiding his own money. Wallace accepted a mug. Damien's been disbarred. And Emily, he smiled. Let's just say the society pages aren't being kind. My laptop chimed with an email notification, another interview request. The publisher wanted the full story, from first meeting Harrison to the final showdown at sea. You should do it. Wallace nodded at my screen. People need to hear how these things happen, how abuse isn't always bruises. It's the quiet cuts, I agreed, the small erosions of dignity, death by 1,000 polite humiliations. My phone lit up with a text from Talia. I'm sorry. I should have known he'd do to me what he did to you. Looks like your replacement's having regrets, Wallace noted. She'll learn. They all do. I opened my laptop and created a new document. The cursor blinked, waiting. Another news alert. Emily hospitalized again following social media backlash. Still playing victim, I muttered. Speaking of playing, Wallace pulled out his tablet. Your new PR firm is taking off. 3 clients already, all wanting to rebuild after toxic relationships. I thought about my grandmother's words before she died. That house they mock? It's your escape hatch, dear. Use it when you're ready. She'd known. She'd seen through Emily's perfect manners and Harrison's charming smile. She'd left me not just a cottage, but a foundation to rebuild on. Max padded over, resting his head on my lap as I began to type. To the woman reading this, wondering if she's crazy for noticing the small cruelties, the subtle erasures, the polite degradations. You're not crazy, you're not oversensitive, and you're not alone. My doorbell rang again. This time it was Amy, holding wine and takeout. Thought you could use dinner and gossip. The cruise line's using your story in their sexual harassment training. I laughed. Really? Apparently you're a case study in how not to treat passengers. She set out containers. Oh, and Harrison's mother? She tried to join the country club in the next town. They turned her down. Money can't buy reputation back, Wallace mused. I raised my wine glass. To karma. To evidence, Wallace countered. To both, Amy finished. And to quiet wives who keep receipts. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Christine. You were right. About everything. I'm getting help. I showed it to Wallace. Think she means it? Does it matter? He gestured at my comfortable new home, my thriving business, my peaceful life. You've already won. Back at my laptop, I continued typing. They think silence means weakness. They think compliance means defeat. But sometimes the quiet ones are just gathering evidence, building strength, waiting for the perfect moment to show them exactly who they underestimated. Amy peered over my shoulder. The book's really happening? People need to know, I said. About the subtle abuse, the financial traps, the family dynamics that enable it all. And the escape routes, Wallace added. I looked around my grandmother's cottage. Now my sanctuary, my fresh start, my victory palace. Max dozed peacefully. The evening sun painted the walls gold, and my phone remained blissfully free of Harrison's name. That's the thing about karma, I typed. It's not about revenge. It's about balance. And sometimes, balance requires you to burn the whole road behind you and build a new one ahead. Amy topped off our glasses. To new roads? I smiled, thinking of Emily's crumbling empire, Harrison's ruined career, and my own unexpected rise from quiet wife to voice of change. To new roads, I agreed, and to the women brave enough to build them.
"You have some nerve showing up here," Patricia hissed, her perfectly manicured hand gripping my arm as I tried to enter the church. "You abandoned her when she needed you most." I stood frozen at the entrance of St. Michael's Cathedral, where my mother's funeral was about to begin. The morning sun filtered through the stained glass windows, casting colorful shadows that felt mockingly cheerful for such a dark day. My name is Alexandra Winters, and at 35, I was being blocked from my own mother's funeral by the woman who'd spent the last 15 years trying to erase me from her life. "Let go of me, Patricia," I said quietly, conscious of the gathering crowd of mourners watching our exchange. "I have every right to be here." "Right?" She laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You lost that right when you walked away, when you left her to suffer alone." The truth burned in my throat, begging to be shouted. I hadn't walked away. I was driven away, pushed out by Patricia's careful manipulation and lies. But I promised myself I wouldn't cause a scene. Not today, not at Mom's funeral. "Is there a problem here?" A deep voice cut through the tension. Pastor Michael, who'd known our family for decades, stepped forward from the church doorway. Patricia immediately transformed, her grip loosening as she dabbed at invisible tears with her free hand. "Oh, Pastor, I'm just so overwhelmed with grief." And now Alexandra shows up, after all these years of breaking her mother's heart. The whispers started then, exactly as Patricia had intended. I could see the judgmental glances from family friends and relatives who only knew the version of events she fed them over the years. She hasn't visited in 15 years. Didn't even call when Ellen was diagnosed. Such a disgrace. But Pastor Michael's kind eyes held mine steadily. He'd been there 15 years ago, though I doubted even he knew the full story. "Alexandra," he said warmly, "your mother would want you here. Please come in." I walked past Patricia, head held high despite the weight of disapproving stares. The church smelled of lilies and grief, the scent nearly overwhelming as I made my way down the aisle. My steps echoed in the hushed sanctuary, each one feeling like an accusation. The front pews were filled with Patricia's side of the family, the people who'd taken over my mother's life after she married Patricia's father, James, 12 years ago. They shifted uncomfortably as I passed, some turning away entirely. I took a seat in the back, where I could see my mother's casket surrounded by arrangements of her favorite white roses. A large photo of her stood nearby, one I'd never seen before. In it she was smiling, but it wasn't the bright, infectious smile I remembered from my childhood. This smile seemed dimmer, more resigned. Patricia took her place in the front row, leaning against my stepfather James, who hadn't even acknowledged my presence. She turned slightly, throwing a triumphant glance my way before whispering something to her daughter, Emma, who snickered in response. As Pastor Michael approached the podium, I closed my eyes, fighting back tears. The last time I'd seen Mom was through a hospital window 3 months ago. Patricia had convinced the staff I wasn't on the approved visitors list. By the time I'd sorted it out, Mom had been moved to a different facility, one Patricia refused to disclose. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the life of Ellen Winters Crawford," Pastor Michael began, his voice gentle but firm. "Before we begin the service, Ellen left something in my care. She was quite insistent that it be shared today." My eyes snapped open as he reached beneath the podium and withdrew a worn leather-bound book. Patricia sat up straighter, her spine stiffening visibly. "Her diary," Pastor Michael explained, "and these." He lifted a bundle of envelopes held together with a faded blue ribbon. "Ellen wrote faithfully for 15 years, and she asked that I read selected passages today." "That won't be necessary," Patricia interrupted, half rising from her seat. "We should focus on the service." "It was Ellen's explicit wish," Pastor Michael said firmly, opening the diary to a marked page. and we are here to honor her wishes. The silence in the church grew heavier as he cleared his throat. But before he could begin reading, Patricia stood up fully, her voice sharp with barely controlled panic. "Those are private family matters," she insisted. "This isn't appropriate for." Dated September 15th, 2008, Pastor Michael Reed, speaking over her objection. "My dearest Alexandra." Patricia sank back into her seat, her face draining of color. In that moment, I understood. She knew what was in those letters. She knew what truths that diary held. My heart pounded as Pastor Michael continued reading, his voice carrying clearly through the hushed church. "For 15 years, I carried the weight of being the bad daughter, the one who'd supposedly abandoned her mother. But as the first letter unfurled in Pastor Michael's steady voice, I realized that finally, after all these years, the truth was about to come out." The congregation shifted uncomfortably, all eyes now moving between me and Patricia as Pastor Michael turned the page. My stepmother's perfectly composed mask was cracking, and for the first time since I'd arrived, I allowed myself a small smile. Mom had always told me that the truth would come to light eventually. I just never expected it would be here, now in front of everyone who judged me. As Pastor Michael continued reading, I settled back in my seat, ready to hear what my mother had really been writing all those years I was kept away. "My dearest Alexandra." Pastor Michael Reed, his voice echoing through the silent church. "Today they told me I couldn't call you. Patricia said it would be best if we had a clean break after the incident. But she doesn't know I'm writing these letters, keeping track of every day I'm forced to be apart from you." I watched as several heads turned toward Patricia, who sat rigid in the front pew, her knuckles white as she gripped her purse. "The incident they blame you for was entirely orchestrated." Pastor Michael continued reading. "Patricia convinced James that you stole her mother's jewelry during your last visit. I know you didn't. I saw her hide the pieces in Emma's room myself. But when I tried to speak up, Patricia threatened to stop my medical treatments if I defended you." Gasps echoed through the church. Emma, my stepsister, slid down in her seat, her face flushed with guilt. "Each day, I watched them systematically erase you from my life. They've removed our family photos, blocked your number from my phone, and intercepted your letters. But they can't erase you from my heart." Pastor Michael paused, reaching for the bundle of envelopes. "These letters were written to you, Alexandra, but never sent. Your mother managed to get them to me one by one over the years, asking me to keep them safe until the right moment." He untied the blue ribbon, and dozens of envelopes spilled across the podium. Each one was dated, addressed to me in my mother's familiar handwriting. January 3rd, 2010, he read from another letter. "Today was your birthday. Patricia threw a party for Emma instead, claiming it would help me move on. But I sat in my room looking at the only photo of you I have left, the tiny one I keep hidden in my locket. You would be 22 today. I wonder if you still wear your hair long, if you still love photography, if you finished college." Tears streamed down my face now. I had finished college, graduated with honors in photography. I'd sent the photos to Mom's address, but like everything else, they never reached her. March 15th, 2015, Pastor Michael selected another letter. "They've moved me to a new house today, further away from our old neighborhood. I overheard Patricia telling James it was necessary because you've been asking neighbors about me. My heart soared knowing you were still trying to find me, still fighting to reach me. Don't give up, my darling girl." I hadn't given up. I'd hired private investigators, contacted police, but Patricia had always been one step ahead, moving Mom from place to place, convincing authorities that I was mentally unstable and pursuing an elderly woman who wanted no contact. Pastor Michael opened the diary to its final pages. "This entry is dated just 3 weeks ago," he said softly. "I know I don't have much time left. The cancer has spread, and Patricia controls my care completely now. But I've made sure these letters will reveal the truth. My dearest Alexandra, if you're hearing this, know that I never believed their lies. I never stopped loving you, never stopped fighting to reach you. They told me you had abandoned me, but I saw the cards they threw away, the gifts they returned, the calls they blocked." Patricia stood up abruptly. "This is slander," she shouted. Ellen was confused near the end, her medication. The silence that followed was deafening. James had his head in his hands, while Emma couldn't meet anyone's eyes. But Patricia was already moving toward the exit, her heels clicking rapidly against the church floor. "Mrs. Crawford," Pastor Michael called out, "there are police officers waiting outside." Ellen asked me to contact them as well. They have some questions about elderly abuse and financial fraud. I stood up, my legs shaky but my voice strong. "Patricia." She froze at the door. "You couldn't erase me after all. Mom made sure of that." Through my tears, I saw Pastor Michael gathering the letters, handling them with the care they deserved. 15 years of my mother's love, hidden but never lost, finally coming to light. The truth had been worth waiting for. In the weeks following Mom's funeral, everything changed. The police investigation uncovered even more than Mom's letters had revealed. Patricia's carefully constructed web of lies unraveled spectacularly, exposing years of financial exploitation and elderly abuse. I sat in my old childhood home, now returned to my possession, sorting through Mom's belongings. Just as she'd written, the false bottom of her desk drawer contained everything: photographs, recordings, and meticulous notes documenting Patricia's manipulation. "Alex," James' voice came from the doorway, hesitant and heavy with regret. My stepfather had aged decades in the past few weeks, the weight of his willful ignorance finally catching up to him. "Come in," I said, not looking up from the photo album I found, one Patricia hadn't managed to destroy. It was filled with pictures from my childhood, Mom and me smiling, happy, before everything fell apart. "I've been going through Patricia's things," he said, sitting heavily in Mom's reading chair. "Found these in her personal safe." He handed me a stack of cards and letters, all the birthday cards, Christmas wishes, and notes I'd sent Mom over the years. "She kept everything you sent as evidence against you," she said, "but I think she needed to maintain control, to keep proving to herself that she was justified." I took the letters with trembling hands. 15 years of communication that had never reached Mom, yet somehow found their way back to me now. "I was blind," James continued, his voice breaking. "I chose to believe Patricia because it was easier than questioning her. Your mother, Ellen tried to tell me so many times, but I wouldn't listen." The investigation had revealed that Patricia was now facing criminal charges. Emma, consumed by guilt, had confessed everything about the jewelry incident that had started it all. She'd been 17 then, terrified of her mother, forced to play along with Patricia's schemes. "Emma wanted me to give you this," James said, placing a small jewelry box on the desk. Inside was the necklace that had allegedly been stolen, the catalyst Patricia had used to drive me away. "She's in therapy now, trying to deal with everything." I closed the jewelry box without touching the necklace. Some wounds were still too fresh. A knock at the door interrupted us. It was Pastor Michael, carrying a small package. "I found this in the church office," he said. "Your mother left it there years ago, with instructions to give it to you after the letters were read." Inside was a simple leather-bound photo album. On the first page, Mom had written, "For Alexandra, all the moments I couldn't share with you." As I turned the pages, tears filled my eyes. Mom had documented everything. My graduation day, she'd been there, hidden in the crowd. Art exhibitions of my photography work, even the opening of my studio. She followed my life from afar, collecting newspaper clippings, photographs taken by friends, keeping track of every achievement Patricia had tried to dismiss. "She never gave up on you," Pastor Michael said softly. "Even when she couldn't reach you directly, she found ways to be part of your life." The final page held a recent photo of Mom in her hospital bed, smiling weakly but holding up a small sign. "I knew you'd make me proud." "The trust has been restored to you," James said, standing to leave. "It's not much compared to what was taken, but—" "It was never about the money," I interrupted. "It was about the truth, about Mom knowing I never abandoned her." After they left, I spent hours going through Mom's diary, reading entry after entry of her daily thoughts, her unwavering love, her constant fight against Patricia's control. Each word helped heal a piece of the pain I carried for 15 years. 3 months later, I opened an art gallery dedicated to Mom. The main exhibition featured photographs spanning 15 years, all the moments we'd missed together, alongside the moments she secretly witnessed. Patricia's sentencing was scheduled for the following week, but that felt less important now. Emma came to the opening night, keeping to the edges of the crowd, uncertain of her welcome. I found her staring at a photo of Mom from her college graduation, one I'd sent that had never been received. "She kept every article about your photography," Emma said quietly. In a secret album under her mattress. I found it once, but I was too scared of Mom to say anything. I looked at my stepsister, seeing not the smirking teenager who'd helped frame me, but a fellow victim of Patricia's manipulation. Mom wrote about you too, I told her. She worried about you, living under Patricia's control. She hoped you'd find the strength to break free someday. Emma wiped away tears. I'm so sorry, Alex, for everything. The final photograph in the exhibition was the one from Mom's hospital room, with her handwritten sign. Below it, I placed her diary, open to her last entry. Love finds a way to survive, even in the darkest places. Alexandra, you were my light always. And now finally, everyone will know the truth. Standing there, surrounded by 15 years of moments both lost and found, I felt Mom's presence. She'd won in the end. Her letters had exposed the truth, her love had outlasted Patricia's lies, and her story had brought healing not just to me, but to everyone touched by her quiet strength. Some truths take time to come to light, but as Mom always believed, they're worth waiting for. Security. Remove this imposter from my husband's funeral. Margaret's shrill voice cut through the solemn atmosphere of the funeral home. I stood frozen, still holding the white rose I'd brought to place on Dad's casket. The security guard looked uncomfortable but moved toward me as my stepmother continued her performance. She's not even his real daughter, my half-sister Amanda Stage whispered to the horrified onlookers. Just some kid he took pity on before he met Mom. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 35, I was being thrown out of my own father's funeral. The irony wasn't lost on me. The last time I'd seen Dad alive, he'd been trying to tell me something important, something about the past. But Margaret had interrupted before he could finish. The security guard gently took my arm. Miss, I'm sorry, but I have to ask you to leave. Wait, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I have a right to be here. He was my father. A DNA test would prove otherwise. That was my half-brother Michael smirking from his seat in the front row. The same smirk he'd worn when he'd accidentally destroyed my science project in high school, knowing Dad would believe his version of events over mine. I looked at Dad's casket, at the portrait of him displayed beside it. His kind eyes seemed to be watching this whole scene unfold, and for a moment I could almost hear his voice. Stay strong, live. The truth always comes out in the end. But before I could protest further, 2 security guards were escorting me toward the exit. The sound of snickering followed me out, my siblings enjoying their final victory over the outsider who dared to claim a place in their perfect family. As the doors closed behind me, I sank onto a bench outside the funeral home, my mind spinning back to my earliest memories. Dad, Thomas Parker, had been part of my life for as long as I could remember. He'd married my mom when I was just a baby, and though the marriage hadn't lasted, he'd remained my father in every way that mattered. He'd never missed a birthday, never failed to show up for school events, and had put me through college despite Margaret's protests about wasting money on someone else's kid. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. Hope you enjoyed the show. Dad's real family is saying goodbye now. I was about to turn off my phone when another message came through, this one from an unknown number. Ms. Parker, this is James Wilson from Wilson & Associates Law Firm. I'm your father's attorney. Please remain nearby. Your presence will be required for the reading of the will immediately following the service. My heart skipped a beat. Margaret had told me there was no will, that everything had been arranged years ago to pass directly to her and her children. But then again, Margaret had told me a lot of things over the years. I sat there for what felt like hours, watching people arrive and leave, many giving me curious or pitying glances. A few old family friends tried to approach me, but quickly scurried away when Margaret's sharp eyes landed on them through the funeral home windows. Finally, the service ended. People began filing out, and I watched Margaret lead my siblings toward their cars, their faces still bearing those self-satisfied expressions. But before they could leave, James Wilson appeared at the entrance. Mrs. Parker, he called out to Margaret, his voice carrying across the parking lot. And family, please proceed to my office immediately for the reading of Thomas Parker's will and final letters. Margaret's head snapped around so fast I thought she might get whiplash. Letters? What letters? All will be explained at my office, James replied calmly. Then his eyes found me on the bench. Ms. Olivia Parker, that includes you. She's not invited, Margaret snapped. Any paperwork involving my husband's estate will be handled by his real family. James adjusted his glasses, looking down at Margaret with an expression I couldn't quite read. Actually, Mrs. Parker, Olivia's presence is explicitly required by your late husband. In fact, he left specific instructions that the will cannot be read without her in attendance. The look on Margaret's face was worth every second of humiliation I'd endured that day. She opened and closed her mouth several times, but no words came out. Amanda and Michael exchanged worried glances. If you'll all follow me, James continued, there's something you need to see, particularly an envelope your father left, dated 30 years ago, with explicit instructions that it was to be opened only upon his death, with all of his children present. As I stood to follow them, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the funeral home windows. Behind me, Dad's portrait seemed to be smiling, as if he knew something the rest of us didn't. Maybe he did. Maybe that's what he'd been trying to tell me during our last conversation. Walking toward the lawyer's office, I remembered Dad's words from that day. Liv, there's something you need to know about the past, about your mother. But Margaret had burst in then, as she always did when Dad tried to have private conversations with me, and the moment was lost. Now, watching Margaret and my siblings march ahead of me, their confidence slightly shaken, I couldn't help but wonder, what was in that 30-year-old letter? And why had Dad waited until after his death to reveal it? The answer would change everything, not just about my past, but about the future Margaret and her children had so carefully planned. They just didn't know it yet. The tension in James Wilson's office was thick enough to cut with a knife. Margaret perched on the edge of her seat like a bird ready to take flight, while Amanda and Michael slouched in their chairs, trying to appear unconcerned but failing miserably. I sat quietly by the window, watching dust motes dance in the afternoon sunlight. James cleared his throat and pulled out a large manila envelope. Before we proceed with the current will, Thomas left explicit instructions to read this letter first. He held up a yellowed envelope, the edges worn with age. It's dated September 15th, 1993. Margaret's face paled. That was around the time she first met Dad, and just after his divorce from my mom. This is ridiculous, Michael interrupted. Some ancient letter can't possibly be relevant now. James ignored him and broke the seal. The paper inside was old but well preserved, as if Dad had known how important it would be to protect these words. My dearest children, James began reading, if you're hearing this, it means I'm no longer with you. There are truths that need to be spoken, secrets I've carried for too long. Oh, enough of this drama, Margaret cut in. Just get to the will. James gave her a stern look. Mrs. Parker, your husband's instructions were very clear. Now, as I was saying, he continued reading. Olivia, my beautiful daughter, and yes, I mean my daughter in every sense of the word. The truth is, I didn't just marry your mother out of love for her. I married her because you were mine. The room went completely silent. I felt the floor tilt beneath me as the words sank in. What? Amanda shrieked. That's impossible. But James wasn't finished. I met Sarah, Olivia's mother, years before I publicly knew her. We were young in love, but my family disapproved. When she told me she was pregnant, I was forced to keep my distance. My father threatened to cut off not just me, but to use his influence to destroy Sarah's family business as well. I was a coward. I let her go. Tears were streaming down my face now. All those years of feeling like an outsider, of Margaret's snide comments about my questionable parentage, Dad had known the truth all along. By the time I finally stood up to my father and married Sarah, Olivia was already a year old. We tried to make it work, but the weight of our past secrets and my years of absence had created too wide a gap. When we divorced, I couldn't bring myself to tell the truth. I thought I was protecting everyone. Margaret had gone from pale to red. This is preposterous. Where's the proof? James pulled out another document from the envelope. Thomas included DNA test results from 1993, confirming his paternity. He also had updated tests done 6 months ago, which are included in his current will. Michael jumped to his feet. This can't be legal. Mom, tell him. But Margaret wasn't looking at Michael. She was staring at me with a mixture of hatred and something else. Fear. There's more, James continued. Sarah and I agreed to keep this secret to protect Olivia from my father's interference. But now that both he and Sarah are gone, and with my own death, The truth needs to be known. Olivia isn't just my daughter, she's my firstborn child. The implications of those words hung heavy in the air. In traditional inheritance law, the firstborn often held a special position. This letter also contains my deepest apologies to Olivia for not standing up for the truth sooner, to Amanda and Michael, who must now adjust to a reality different from what they've known. And even to you, Margaret, though I know this revelation will hurt you most of all. I don't believe any of this, Margaret spat, but her voice trembled. It's all lies. James set down the letter and picked up a thick file. Along with this letter, Thomas left extensive documentation. Birth records, DNA tests, photographs, letters between himself and Sarah, and a detailed timeline of events. He was very thorough in ensuring the truth couldn't be disputed. I sat there, trying to process everything. Dad wasn't just the man who'd raised me. He was my biological father. All those times Margaret had mocked my unknown origins, she'd been unknowingly insulting her own husband. Now, James said, picking up another document, shall we proceed with the current will? Though I should warn you, Thomas made some significant changes 6 months ago, after confirming the DNA results again. Margaret gripped the arms of her chair, her knuckles white. Amanda had started crying quietly, while Michael just stared blankly ahead. Actually, I spoke up for the first time since entering the office. Could we take a brief break? I think we all need a moment to process this. James nodded sympathetically. Of course. Let's reconvene in 15 minutes. As everyone filed out of the office, I remained in my chair, finally understanding why Dad had tried so hard to talk to me that last time. He wanted to tell me the truth himself, but Margaret's constant interference had prevented it. I pulled out my phone and looked at the last photo I had of Dad and me together, taken at my little cafe 3 months ago. He was smiling proudly as I showed him the new coffee roaster I bought. Even then, he must have known he was sick, must have known his time was running out. I'm so sorry, Dad, I whispered to the photo. I wish you'd told me sooner. But maybe I realized this was his final gift to me, not just the truth about my identity, but the chance to finally stand on equal footing with the family that had tried so hard to push me away. Through the office window, I could see Margaret huddled with Amanda and Michael, their faces tight with worry. Whatever came next, nothing would ever be the same. Dad had made sure of that with one 30-year-old letter. When we met again in James' office, the mood had changed a lot. Margaret, who had seemed so sure of herself before, now looked nervous, playing with her pearl necklace. Amanda and Michael sat quietly, no longer making rude comments. James opened the current will and adjusted his glasses. Now about Thomas Parker's estate and his wishes. What came next felt like a series of shocks, one after the other. To my daughter, Olivia Parker, I leave 50% of my entire estate, including my shares in Parker Industries and my personal investments. Margaret gasped loudly. James kept reading. Also, I leave her my grandfather's house on Maple Street, where she lived with her mother, Sarah, as a child. The house has been fully renovated over the past 6 months. I remembered that house, the big old one with the wraparound porch. Mom and I had lived there with Dad during their short marriage. I always wondered why he kept it. To my children Amanda and Michael Parker, James continued, I leave 25% of the estate each. This will be held in trust until they can show financial responsibility by keeping steady jobs for at least 2 years. What? Michael shouted. That's not fair. James ignored him. To my wife Margaret, I leave our current home and a monthly allowance, which will be managed by the estate trustees. Margaret's face turned red. An allowance? Like I'm a child? James didn't stop. Also, Olivia will get the controlling shares in Parker Industries. The room went wild. Margaret jumped up, Amanda started crying, and Michael yelled about fighting the will. James raised a hand and everyone went quiet. There's a personal letter for each of you, he said, handing out 4 envelopes. Thomas wanted you to read them in private. I took mine with shaking hands and waited until I got home. Sitting in my small apartment above my cafe, I opened the letter. My dearest Olivia, by now, you know the truth about your birth. I wanted to tell you for years but was too afraid. You deserve better from me. I've watched you build your cafe from nothing. You worked twice as hard because I didn't give you the same advantages as your siblings. But you never became bitter. You always stayed kind, even to those who weren't kind to you. You have your mother's strength and my business sense, even if you don't see it yet. I gave you the controlling shares of Parker Industries not just because you're my firstborn, but because you're the only one who truly understands hard work and honesty. I know you'll do the right thing, not just for the company, but for Amanda and Michael too. They need guidance more than they need money. I'm so proud of you, Liv. I hope you can forgive me for not telling you sooner. All my love, Dad. A week later, I sat in what was now my office at Parker Industries, going through old files. It turned out Dad had been preparing me for this all along. Through our talks at my cafe, his interest in how I ran my business, and the advice he gave me. Margaret had already said she was going to contest the will, but James said she didn't have a strong case. Amanda surprised me by apologizing. She said she had always been jealous that Dad was proud of me. Michael was still angry, but he had time to figure things out while he worked to earn his share. As for me, I kept the cafe. It was my first success, and it meant a lot to me. But I also threw myself into learning everything about Parker Industries. Dad was right. I understood more than I realized. The employees remembered me from when I was little. Some told me Dad had talked proudly about how I ran my cafe and even used my ideas in meetings. One afternoon, as I walked past the big portrait of Dad in the lobby, I looked up at his kind eyes. I could almost hear him saying, "See, Liv. The truth always comes out in the end." I smiled and touched the frame. "Thanks, Dad," I whispered, "for everything." The truth had come out, and with it, I gained not just an inheritance, but something even more important, the knowledge that I truly belonged. That weekend, I visited the house on Maple Street. Standing on the porch, I felt like I had come full circle. I was no longer the outsider. I was the daughter my father had always believed in. Margaret's angry legal letters didn't bother me anymore. I had the truth, Dad's trust, and a future he had carefully prepared for me. Sometimes the best kind of revenge isn't fighting back, it's becoming exactly who you were meant to be. Perfect timing, I said, watching my mother-in-law Diana wheel her expensive luggage into my foyer. I just finished setting up the guest room's security cameras. The smile froze on her face. Security cameras? Don't be ridiculous, Amanda. This is family. I'm here to help fix whatever's wrong with you that's making my Michael so unhappy. I wanted to laugh at the irony. Just 3 hours ago, I discovered why Michael had been so unhappy, in the form of hundreds of messages to his coworker Jessica on a hidden phone I found while doing laundry. The text painted a vivid picture of their 6-month affair, complete with plans to leave me once he made partner at his law firm next month. "The guest room's all yours," I said cheerfully, helping her with a bag. "I've even installed new smart locks on all the doors. For security, of course." Diana's perfectly manicured hand tightened around her purse. At 58, she still dressed like she was competing with women half her age, today sporting a designer outfit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd never approved of me, the public school teacher who trapped her precious son with marriage before he could fulfill his potential. "Smart locks, Amanda, really? Michael mentioned you've been acting paranoid lately. This is exactly why I'm here." I led her upstairs, thinking about the hidden phone currently backing up its contents to my laptop. Michael had gotten sloppy, probably believing I was too trusting to ever check. After 10 years of marriage, he still thought I was the same naive 23-year-old who'd fallen for his charm. The cameras sync directly to my phone, I explained, showing her the guest room. They record audio too. Just installed them this morning after Michael left for work. Deanna set her bags down, frowning. "You're being ridiculous. My son would never." "Never what?" I interrupted pleasantly. "Never cheat. Never plan to leave his wife. Never spend our 10th anniversary with his 24-year-old mistress while telling me he was at a conference." The color drained from her face. "You're lying. Michael would tell me if he was unhappy enough to." My phone chimed. The backup was complete. "Would you like to see the messages, Deanna? They're quite detailed, especially the ones about how he plans to avoid giving me any of the assets once he makes partner. Jessica seems very interested in the house." Diana sank onto the guest bed, her composure cracking slightly. "If there's been some indiscretion, I'm sure we can fix it. That's why I'm here. Michael called me last week, said you've been distant, checking his phone, asking about his late nights at work." Imagine that. I mused, sitting in the armchair across from her, almost like I suspected something. By the way, how's the foundation doing? The children's charity you chair? The sudden topic change threw her. The foundation? It's fine. Why? Just curious. Since you handle all the finances, must be challenging keeping track of all those donations. Her eyes narrowed. What are you implying? Nothing yet. But you might want to check your text messages with Michael from last month. The ones about moving certain funds around before he leaves me. The charities board might find those interesting. Diana stood up so quickly she almost tripped on her designer heels. You're bluffing. Those messages were deleted. Were they? Want to bet your reputation on that? I pulled out my phone, holding it just out of her reach. Amazing what data recovery software can do these days. Almost as amazing as finding out my mother-in-law helped plan her son's divorce strategy. I was protecting my son, she hissed. You never deserved him, or this house, or any of our family's connections. You've been holding him back for years. I stood up, feeling strangely calm. You know what the funny thing is? I installed the cameras this morning before finding the phone. Want to know why? She took a step back, probably seeing something in my expression that finally made her nervous. I installed them because 3 days ago, I overheard you and Michael planning how you'd move in to document my unstable behavior, create evidence for the divorce. Imagine my surprise when his hidden phone gave me so much more. The security camera in the corner blinked steadily, recording Diana's face as it cycled through shock, fear, and fury. Everything was going exactly as I'd planned, but she didn't need to know that part 2 of my strategy was already in motion. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice barely controlled. I smiled, heading for the door. Right now. Nothing. Just enjoy your stay, Diana. The cameras will make sure everyone's behavior is perfectly documented. As I walked downstairs, I heard her frantically dialing her phone, probably calling Michael. Let her. The next few days would be very educational for everyone involved. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. Mom says you're acting crazy. We need to talk when I get home. I typed back, looking forward to it. Your mom's all settled in. The security cameras are working great. Then I turned my phone off and went to prepare dinner. After all, I had 2 guests to cook for tonight, and I wanted everything to be perfect. The stage was set, the players were in position, and Diana had no idea she just walked into a trap 10 years in the making. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting everything. Michael arrived home at 7:30 p.m. His expensive suit slightly rumpled and his cologne a bit too strong. No doubt trying to cover up traces of his afternoon meeting with Jessica. His face darkened when he saw the dining room table set for 3. Mom says you've lost your mind, he announced, loosening his tie. Security cameras? Really, Amanda? I continued serving the pot roast I prepared, his favorite meal. Just trying to keep everyone safe. Wine? Stop playing games, he snapped. What's really going on? Why don't you ask Jessica? I suggested mildly. She seems to know a lot about what's going on, especially regarding your partnership bonus next month. The color drained from his face. Before he could respond, Diana swept into the dining room, her heels clicking aggressively against the hardwood floors. Michael, she's threatening me with some ridiculous accusations about the foundation, she declared. We need to move up the timeline. Mom. Michael cut her off, but it was too late. I sat down, smiling. Timeline? Do tell. The security camera in the corner blinked steadily, catching every moment of their panicked exchange of glances. I positioned the dining room camera perfectly. It had a clear view of their faces and picked up audio beautifully. Amanda? Michael tried his lawyer voice, the one that had first attracted me when we met. You're clearly under a lot of stress. Maybe we should discuss this privately. With the cameras off? I asked innocently, but then how would we document my unstable behavior for the divorce proceedings? Diana's fork clattered against her plate. Michael's jaw tightened. How did you? No. I finished for him. Let's see, was it the hidden phone in your gym bag? The foundation transfers your mother helped you arrange, or maybe it was overhearing you both plan this little intervention 3 days ago. You went through my phone. His voice rose with indignation. No, your other phone. The one you used to text Jessica about your plans for my house once you're made partner. She has quite expensive taste in renovations. Michael stood up so quickly his chair tipped over. You had no right. Sit down, I said quietly. The cameras are watching, remember? Wouldn't want to appear aggressive on video. He sat, hands shaking with rage. Diana hadn't touched her food, her face a mask of calculated concern. Whatever you think you know, she began, we can discuss this as a family. We're not family, I interrupted. We're witnesses, and everything happening right now is being recorded and backed up to multiple secure locations. Are you threatening us? Michael demanded. I took a sip of wine. Not at all. I'm just documenting everything. Like the fact that you're wearing the same suit you wore in the photos Jessica posted from your business lunch today. The ones where you're clearly not at that office. His face went pale. What photos? Oh, she's not very careful with her social media, especially after a few drinks. She even tagged the hotel. Diana jumped in, trying to salvage the situation. Amanda, clearly we all need to take a step back. Like you did when you helped Michael move money from our joint accounts. I asked. Or when you suggested he document my mental instability to avoid a fair divorce settlement. The security camera hummed quietly, recording Diana's expression as it shifted from fake concern to naked hostility. You deserved it, she hissed. 10 years of watching you hold my son back, living in this house that should have gone to someone worthy of our family name. Mom, stop, Michael warned, but she was too angry to listen. We had it all planned, she continued. The evidence of your instability, the documentation of your paranoid behavior, the gradual transfer of assets. Everything was perfect until you started snooping. I pulled out my phone and pressed stop on the recording app. The backup to my camera system. Their faces shifted as they realized what had just happened. Thank you for that confession, I said cheerfully. The cameras caught it too, of course. But it's always good to have backup evidence, especially regarding the foundation funds. Michael slumped in his chair, his lawyer mind finally catching up to what had just happened. Diana's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. What do you want? He asked quietly. I stood up, smoothing my napkin. Finish your dinner. We'll discuss terms tomorrow. I have all the documentation my lawyer needs, including evidence of financial fraud, conspiracy, and deliberate manipulation of charitable funds. The question isn't what I want. I paused at the doorway, turning back to face them. The question is, what are you willing to give up to keep this quiet? As I headed upstairs, I heard Diana's sharp whisper, Fix this, Michael. She's bluffing. Shut up, Mom, Michael snapped. Just shut up. I closed my bedroom door, equipped with its own security camera, of course, and finally let myself smile. Phase 2 was complete. They'd walked right into it, their arrogance making them sloppy, their sense of superiority blinding them to the trap until it was too late. Tomorrow would bring phase 3, but for now, I had one last call to make. I dialed my lawyer's number, knowing she was waiting for my update. Did you get it? She asked. Every word, I confirmed. The foundation confession, the conspiracy admission, everything. Your timing with Jessica's social media posts was perfect, by the way. While she laughed, amazing what a sympathetic bartender can accomplish. Get some rest. Tomorrow we present our terms. I ended the call and lay back on my bed, listening to the muffled sounds of argument floating up from the dining room. Diana and Michael were probably realizing just how completely their plan had backfired. Sometimes the best defense isn't just being prepared. It's being prepared long before your opponents even know there's a battle coming. The next morning, I sat in my lawyer's office. Across from me, Michael and his mother, Diana, looked uncomfortable in their expensive chairs. On the table lay all the proof. Bank records, text messages, social media posts, and worst of all, video footage from the night before. Let's talk about the terms, said my lawyer, Catherine, calmly. Mrs. Walker has been more than fair, considering what's happened. Michael leaned forward, trying to sound professional. Before we go on, I want to talk about whether those recordings are even legal. This is a single-party consent state, Catherine said quickly, and here's the paperwork about the foundation. She pushed a folder across the table. I think the board would be very interested in this. Diana's hand trembled as she took the folder. Her perfect makeup couldn't hide how tired she looked. This is blackmail, she whispered angrily. No, I said quietly. This is called taking responsibility. Catherine opened her laptop. Here's what we want. Amanda keeps the house. Paid off. The joint bank accounts will be split evenly after the hidden money is returned. And the foundation documents won't be made public as long as you both sign a contract promising to keep quiet about all of this. That's crazy, Diana snapped. Michael earned. Mom, stop. Michael looked exhausted. Then he turned to me and really looked at me for the first time in a long while. You planned everything, didn't you? The cameras, your mom moving in, all of it. I nodded. I learned from watching you. 10 years of seeing you work in court taught me how to build a case. He looked impressed, despite himself. And Jessica's social media posts. Let's just say bartenders are more loyal to good tippers than to smooth-talking lawyers, I said with a small smile. She was happy to help Jessica post freely. Diana jumped up. This is insane. We won't agree to. Sit down, mother, Michael said sharply. You've already done enough. Catherine pulled out one last paper. One more thing. Michael, your law firm's partnership announcement is next week, right? Michael tensed. Yes. Why? Sign everything today and your affair stays private. But if this drags on. She nodded toward the evidence. Let's just say most law firms don't like drama. The room went quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning. I watched Michael think. Finally, he picked up a pen. Where do I sign? Michael. Diana cried. You can't. Enough, he said. You're going home today. You've caused enough damage. 2 hours later, it was done. We signed the papers. I didn't shake at all as I ended my 10-year marriage. As we were leaving, Michael turned to me. You could have taken more, he said. With this much proof, you could have ruined us. I lifted my bag onto my shoulder. I only wanted what was fair. Try remembering that next time you think you're better than someone. Diana walked past us, already on the phone, probably calling her rich friends to tell her version of the story. Let her. The contract we had her sign would keep the truth hidden. What will you do now? Michael asked. Get out. My son deserves better than you. Victoria screamed, throwing more of my clothes into the rain. I stood on the driveway, watching as she ruined my things, a cruel smile on her face. The silk blouse James gave me for our anniversary landed in a muddy puddle. My name is Emma, and at 34, I was watching my mother-in-law of 8 years destroy my life. What she didn't know was that the security cameras I had installed a month ago were recording everything. You're just a gold digger, she shouted over the storm. James finally sees the truth. She came out again, this time holding my jewelry box. My heart sank. My late mother's wedding ring was in there. Victoria, please, I said calmly. Let me pack my things. She laughed loudly. Pack? You should crawl away with nothing, just like when you came here. Lightning lit up the sky as Victoria stood in the doorway of the home I'd lived in for years. Behind her, I saw James in his study, pretending not to see what was happening. Looking back, I should have seen this coming. Victoria had always disliked me. Lately, James had been distant too. Late nights at work. Secret phone calls. But I've been focused on my job as a child psychologist, believing our marriage was strong. I was wrong. Why are you doing this? I asked if I already knew. Victoria never thought I was good enough. Now it looked like she had finally turned James against me. Don't act innocent, she snapped, throwing my jewelry box to the ground. It popped open, and the contents spilled into the mud. I stepped forward to get my mother's ring. But then she said something that froze me. James already signed the divorce papers. You get nothing, no money, no house, nothing. She said, almost gleefully, you should have signed that prenup. The prenup. The one she pushed before the wedding. The one James said I didn't need to sign. The one that somehow reappeared last month, already signed with my name. I looked up at the tiny red light of the hidden camera by the porch. A month ago, things had started feeling off. That's when I installed the cameras, with sound recording too. What they captured was enough to change everything. You're right, I said quietly. I should leave. She looked surprised. She wanted a fight, tears, begging. Instead, I calmly picked up my mom's ring, wiped it off, and slid it onto my finger. That's it, she asked, suspicious. You're just going to walk away. I looked up at the house one last time. Yes, Victoria, I'm leaving, but we'll talk again soon. She slammed the door behind me as I walked to my car. Thunder rumbled as I drove away, leaving my things behind in the rain. What she didn't know was that I wasn't just walking away. I was getting ready to fight back. The cameras had recorded everything. Her sneaky late-night visits. Her telling the housekeeper how to get into my computer. The man who forged my signature on the prenup. Most importantly, they recorded her talking about the divorce papers I hadn't even seen. But now I had proof they were fake. I drove through the rain to the small apartment I secretly rented last week after seeing the first batch of footage. Once inside, I opened my laptop and connected to the security system. The cameras were still running. On the screen, I saw Victoria smiling as she made a phone call. "It's done," she said. She fell for it. Once James announces his engagement to Sophia next week, she can't do anything. Sophia, the secretary Victoria had personally hired 3 months ago. Now, the puzzle pieces were coming together. I picked up my phone and called a number I'd saved weeks ago. "Diana, it's Emma. I think it's time we had that meeting." "Yes, I have the proof. Everything you suspected about Victoria and the company money. I can show it all." Diana, one of the senior partners at James's firm, had approached me last month. She thought someone was stealing from the company but had no evidence. Now we had plenty. I ended the call and looked at my reflection in the window. I didn't see a broken woman. I saw someone ready to fight back. Victoria thought she won. She thought she got rid of the daughter-in-law she hated. But she had no idea that her little performance tonight had just started her downfall. I started downloading the security footage. It was time to show the world who Victoria Bennett really was. The next morning, I met Diana at a small cafe, far from the office. Her face was serious as she watched the security footage on my laptop. One video showed Victoria sneaking into my home office late at night with Sophia, guiding her through my files. "She's been planning this for months," Diana said, pausing the video. "She used your login to steal private client information. She's even changed company records." She shook her head, shocked. "And there's more," I said, clicking on another video. In it, Victoria was in my kitchen at 3 a.m. with a man, practicing my signature. She faked my name on a bunch of documents. One of them is the prenup. Diana frowned. "A prenup that suddenly shows up 8 years into the marriage? That's not legal." I nodded, sipping my cold coffee. She told James I signed it before our wedding. Said it had just been lost all this time. And of course, he believed her. He always believes her. The footage showed Victoria running what looked like a secret business operation, right from my house. Every clip was clear, with time and date stamps, thanks to the security system I'd set up. "What made you put up cameras?" Diana asked, still watching. 6 weeks ago, I noticed changes in some client files I'd been working on. I said, "Small things, but I always double-check everything." Then I found out my passwords had been changed. Diana nodded. "That's when we saw strange things in the company's finances too." "Exactly," I said. Then Victoria started coming by when James was out, pretending to bring food or check on me. But she'd always hang around my office, trying to see what I was doing. The cafe was getting busy with lunch customers. Diana closed my laptop and leaned in. "Emma, this isn't just family drama anymore. This is serious. Fraud, identity theft, forgery." "I know," I said softly, "and I think it goes deeper. She's been pushing James to become CEO ever since you said you were retiring." Now it all makes sense. Diana's face turned cold. "They want him in charge before anyone finds the missing money." With Sophia by his side, "They could hide everything," I said, "unless we stop them first." Diana stood up, grabbing her bag. "Give me 24 hours to get the legal team ready. Don't let Victoria know anything. Let her think she's already won." Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from James. "We need to talk about you picking up your things." I showed Diana. She gave a grim smile. "Perfect. Keep playing along. Let them think you're heartbroken and helpless." I typed out a shaky message. "Please, can we work this out? I still love you." "Good," Diana said, reading it. Overconfident people make mistakes. After she left, I sat in a cafe a while longer, watching happy families and couples around me. 8 years of marriage gone just like that. Or maybe it had been falling apart for a long time, and I just hadn't wanted to see it. Another message buzzed on my phone, this one from Victoria. "Don't bother trying to contact James. He's busy planning his future with someone worthy of the Bennett name." I could almost hear her smug voice in those words. But she had no idea. I was planning too. Back at my temporary apartment, I spent the afternoon going through more footage. Something about Victoria's late-night visits didn't sit right with me. I watched closely, again and again. Then I saw it. In one video, Victoria showed her secret visitor some papers. The camera caught our reflection in the kitchen window. A logo, one I recognized. It belonged to one of our biggest business competitors. My hands shook as I zoomed in. This wasn't just about stealing from the company or breaking up my marriage. Victoria was selling company secrets. I grabbed my phone and called Diana. I found something else, I said quickly. It's worse than we thought. She told me to meet her in an hour. Be careful, Emma. If Victoria finds out what you know. I looked around my apartment, suddenly uneasy. I will. See you soon. Just before I left, another text came through from James. I'm sorry it had to end this way. Mother says you'll get the papers tomorrow. Please don't make this difficult. I stared at it for a moment. I felt angry, sad, but more than anything, I felt ready. Oh, James, I whispered. I'm not going to make this difficult. I'm going to make it impossible. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. It was time for the Bennetts to see exactly who they were dealing with. The next morning, everything changed. I sat in Diana's office alongside her legal team, watching as Victoria and James were escorted in by security. Victoria's usual confident smirk faltered when she saw me. What is she doing here? Victoria demanded, her voice sharp. James, we should leave. Actually, Diana said, standing up, you both need to stay. Emma has something interesting to show you. I connected my laptop to the conference room screen. Victoria's face drained of color as the first video began playing. Her midnight meeting with our competitor's representative, clearly showing her handing over confidential documents. Turn that off, she shrieked, but James held up his hand, his eyes glued to the screen. Mother, he whispered, what did you do? More clips played. Victoria forging my signature, coaching Sophia on accessing secure files, bragging about framing me for corporate espionage. Each video was damning, each timestamp irrefutable. It's all fake, Victoria protested weakly. She's trying to destroy our family. Like you destroyed our marriage? I asked quietly. Or how about the $2 million you embezzled through fake accounts in my name? James sank into a chair, his face ashen. The prenup, the missing funds, it was all you? Diana stepped forward. We've already contacted the authorities. They're very interested in these recordings, especially the parts about selling corporate secrets. Victoria's composure cracked completely. James, you can't let them do this. I did it all for you, for your future. But James wasn't looking at his mother anymore. He was looking at me, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. Emma, he started, but I cut him off. Save it, James. You chose to believe her over me. You were going to let her destroy me without even asking for my side. Diana's legal team presented the evidence. Documented fraud, corporate espionage, forged signatures. Victoria's scheme unraveled spectacularly in that conference room. Officers are waiting downstairs, Diana announced. Victoria, you can either go quietly or we can make this very public. Victoria looked around wildly, like a cornered animal. Then she did something unexpected. She laughed. You think you've won, she sneered at me. You've got nothing. It's your word against mine, and the Bennett name still means something in this town. I smiled calmly. Actually, Victoria, it's not my word. It's yours. Every confession, every scheme, every threat, all recorded in perfect HD quality. The police led Victoria away in handcuffs, her threats echoing down the hallway. James remained behind, looking lost. The divorce papers, he said finally. They weren't real, were they? No, I replied. But don't worry. The real ones will be on your desk this afternoon. 6 months later, I sat in my new office at the firm, now serving as head of legal compliance, a position Diana created specifically to prevent future fraud attempts. Victoria was serving time for corporate espionage and fraud. Sophie had turned state's evidence, revealing even more of Victoria's schemes. James tried to apologize, sent letters begging for reconciliation. But some betrayals can't be undone. The divorce was finalized quietly, and with Diana's help, I received a fair settlement. My security cameras had caught one final scene the night Victoria threw me out. Her confession to James about their plans, his weak protests, his ultimate surrender to her demands. It helped me understand that I hadn't just lost a husband. I'd never really had one. He'd always belonged to Victoria first. Ready for the board meeting? Diana asked, poking her head into my office. I gathered my files and smiled. Ready. As we walked to the conference room, I caught my reflection in a window. The woman looking back wasn't a victim or a pushover. She was a survivor who turned the tables on those who tried to destroy her. Victoria thought she could take everything from me that night in the rain. Instead, she lost everything herself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting stronger. The security cameras didn't just save my reputation, they showed me who I really was. And that woman, she was just getting started. You're not welcome here anymore, Amanda sneered, blocking the doorway to the mansion's grand entrance. This is a family gathering, and you're not family. Behind her, I could see the warm glow of Christmas lights and hear the laughter of relatives enjoying the annual holiday party. My father-in-law's voice carried from somewhere inside, telling one of his favorite stories. I gripped the homemade apple pie tighter, my mother's recipe that everyone had always loved. Amanda, I've been coming to these gatherings for 8 years. Just because your brother and I are divorced. Exactly. She cut me off, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at my chest. You and Michael are over. That means you're out. We're done pretending you belong here. She grabbed the pie from my hands. Thanks for the dessert, though. Now leave before I call security. My name is Olivia Parker, and at 34, I was being kicked out of the family Christmas party by my former sister-in-law, who'd never approved of me from day one. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I wasn't from the same social circle as them. The irony of the situation almost made me laugh. Fine, I said quietly, turning away from the door. Enjoy the party, Amanda. As I walked back to my car, snow crunching under my boots, I heard the door slam behind me. 8 years of memories in that house. Birthdays, holidays, Sunday dinners, all erased because my marriage hadn't worked out. Michael and I had separated amicably, both realizing we wanted different things in life. But his family, especially Amanda, had turned it into a social war. What Amanda didn't know, what none of them knew, was that 6 days ago, I'd signed the final papers making me the official owner of the Morrison Mansion. The very house they were celebrating in right now. The very house Amanda had just kicked me out of. It hadn't been my intention to buy it. I'd been working with a real estate investment group looking for properties to renovate and restore. When the Morrison Mansion came up for sale, I almost ignored it. But then I saw the price, barely half of what it was worth. The previous owner, old Mr. Harrison, had been desperate for a quick, quiet sale. I did some digging and discovered why. The Morrisons, my former in-laws, had been renting the mansion for the past 5 years, presenting themselves as the owners to their social circle. But they'd never actually bought it. They'd been paying rent to Mr. Harrison while telling everyone the house was their family estate. Now they were 3 months behind on rent, and Mr. Harrison wanted out. I sat in my car, watching the party through the frost-covered windows. The mansion was beautiful, especially in winter. Its stone facade and towering windows reminded me of something from a fairy tale. I'd fallen in love with it the first time Michael brought me here. Now it was mine, and they had no idea. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica, my best friend and real estate partner. Did you tell them? Amanda kicked me out before I could. Gee, when are you going to drop the bomb? Not tonight. Let them have their party. You're too nice. I'd walk right back in there and announce it to everyone. I smiled at Jessica's message. She'd never liked how Amanda treated me, always telling me to stand up for myself more. But revenge wasn't my style. I hadn't bought the house to spite them. I'd bought it because it was a good investment. The fact that it would force them to face their lies was just a bonus. The next morning, I met with my lawyer, Emma, to discuss next steps. The previous owner had asked me to honor the existing rental agreement for at least 2 months, giving the Morrisons time to find a new place. I agreed, but there was still the matter of their overdue rent. They need to pay what they owe, Emma said, spreading documents across her desk. Mr. Harrison has provided all the payment records. They haven't paid rent since October. I nodded, looking at the figures. It was a substantial amount. Send them an official notice. Don't mention that I'm the new owner yet. Just that the property has been sold and all past due amounts need to be paid. Emma raised an eyebrow. You're being very generous. Most new owners would evict them immediately. I know, but I want to do this right. They're going to be angry enough when they find out it's me. I don't want to give them any ammunition to fight back. As I left Emma's office, my phone rang. It was Michael. Liv, Amanda told me what happened last night. I'm so sorry. It's fine, Michael. Really? No, it's not. You're still family to me, regardless of our divorce. I'll talk to her. Don't bother. Everything's going to work out exactly as it should. I could hear the confusion in his silence. Michael had always been the kindest of the Morrisons, which was probably why we'd managed to stay friends after our divorce. But even he didn't know about his family's financial situation. Amanda and their parents had kept it hidden from him, just like they hid it from everyone else. That evening, as I sat in my apartment reviewing renovation plans for other properties, I received an email from Emma. The official notice had been sent to the Morrison family. In 2 days, they would learn they had a new landlord. In 2 days, their carefully constructed facade would begin to crack. I poured myself a glass of wine and looked out at the city lights. 8 years ago, I entered the Morrison family feeling like I didn't belong. Amanda had made sure I never forgot my common background, my lack of social connections, my ordinary job in historic preservation. She never knew that while she was looking down on me, I was building my own success, one property at a time. Now I owned the very symbol of their supposed status. The mansion they pretended was their family legacy, the home they used to maintain their social standing. And soon, very soon, they would have to face the truth, not just about the house, but about themselves. I picked up my phone and texted Jessica back. Notice has been sent. Let the games begin. Her response was immediate. Finally. Can't wait to see Amanda's face when she finds out who her new landlord is. Neither could I, if I was being honest. Neither could I 2 days later. I was in my office when Emma called. They've received the notice, she said, trying to suppress a laugh. And they're having quite a reaction. Amanda's already called 3 times demanding to speak to the new owner. I leaned back in my chair, imagining the chaos unfolding at the mansion. What did you tell her? That the owner wishes to remain anonymous for now, but expects all past due rent to be paid within the week. Emma paused. She's not taking it well. Just then, my phone lit up with a call from Michael. I've been expecting this. Liv, did you hear what's happening? His voice was tense. Someone bought the mansion. My parents are freaking out, and Amanda's on a warpath. Really? I kept my voice neutral. What's wrong? Apparently, they're behind on rent. I had no idea we were renting. They always told me we owned it. He sounded hurt, confused. Why would they lie about that? I felt a twinge of sympathy for Michael. He'd always been honest, sometimes to a fault. Finding out his family had been living a lie must be devastating. People keep secrets for all sorts of reasons, I said carefully. Amanda's convinced it's someone from our social circle trying to humiliate us. She's already called half the country club trying to figure out who bought it. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. Amanda had always been obsessed with social status, constantly worried about what others thought. This situation was her worst nightmare come true. Later that afternoon, I drove past the mansion, curiosity getting the better of me. Amanda's red Mercedes was in the driveway, and I could see her pacing in front of the large bay windows, phone pressed to her ear. Even from the street, her agitation was visible. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. Your SIL just called my real estate office trying to get info about the buyer. Should have seen her face when we told her all inquiries go through Emma. I smiled, typing back. How long should we let this play out? Let them stew for a few days. They need to understand they're not in control anymore. She was right. The Morrisons had spent years maintaining their facade of wealth and ownership. A few days of uncertainty wouldn't kill them. But the universe had other plans. The next morning, I received an urgent call from Emma. They're trying to claim adverse possession, she said, sounding both amused and annoyed. Amanda's found some lawyer who's telling them they might have a claim to the property since they've been living there for 5 years. I sat up straighter. Can they do that? Not a chance. They have a rental agreement and have been paying rent, albeit irregularly. That negates any adverse possession claim. But Emma hesitated. I think it's time to reveal who owns the property. Otherwise, they might try something desperate. I agreed, though my stomach churned at the thought of the confrontation to come. Set up a meeting. Tomorrow, if possible. Let's end this. Emma arranged for the meeting to take place at her office. I arrived early, settling into a chair in the conference room while Emma reviewed our documentation one last time. "They're here," her assistant announced, and moments later, the door opened. Amanda strode in first, looking immaculate as always in her designer suit. Her parents followed, then Michael, who stopped short when he saw me. "What are you doing here?" Amanda demanded, her perfectly lined lips curling into a sneer. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my suit. Not designer, but well-tailored and professional. "I'm here because I own the mansion." The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disbelief, rage. Her mother gripped her father's arm, both of them pale. Michael just started laughing. "This is a joke," Amanda finally sputtered. "You can't possibly. You don't have that kind of money." I slid the property deed across the table. "Actually, I do. I've been investing in real estate for years. The mansion was a good opportunity. Undervalued, great location, solid structure." But, Amanda's mother stammered. "You have two options," I continued, my voice steady. "Pay the overdue rent and continue your lease for 2 more months while you find a new place, or leave immediately. You can't do this to us." Amanda's voice rose to a shriek. "This is our home." "No," I corrected her. "It's my property, which you've been renting and lying about." Michael stepped forward, still chuckling. "This is perfect. Absolutely perfect." He turned to his family. "All those years you spent looking down on Olivia, and she ends up owning our supposed family estate." Amanda looked like she might explode. "You knew about this," she accused her brother. "Not until just now," he replied, "but I have to appreciate the irony." Their father finally spoke up, his voice tired. "We'll pay the overdue rent, and we'll be out in 2 months." Amanda whirled on him. "Daddy, no. We can't let her win like this." "Win?" I interjected. "This isn't about winning, Amanda. It's business. I bought a property that was for sale. What happens next is up to you." As they filed out of the conference room, Michael lingered behind. "I'm sorry," he said. "About everything." I shook my head. "Don't be. You were never the problem." He smiled. "No, I wasn't. But I never stood up to them either." He turned to leave, then paused. "You know what the funny thing is? You finally got what you always wanted, their respect, even if it's grudging." I watched him go, thinking about his words. Respect had never been what I wanted from the Morrisons. All I'd ever wanted was to be treated like a person, not a social climbing intruder. Now, ironically, I had become exactly what they had pretended to be, the owner of their precious mansion. 3 weeks had passed since the meeting in Emma's office. True to their word, the Morrisons had paid the overdue rent, though I heard through Michael that Amanda had thrown an epic tantrum about it, accusing her parents of surrendering to the enemy. I was reviewing renovation plans for the mansion. It would need significant updates once they moved out, when my phone rang. It was Amanda. "We need to talk," she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. "In person. Please." I agreed to meet her at a local cafe, curious about what could make Amanda say please to me. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. Gone was the perfectly coiffed appearance she usually maintained. Instead, she looked tired. "I've been thinking," she said, staring into her untouched coffee. "About everything. About how I treated you all these years." I sat quietly, waiting for her to continue. "When Michael first brought you home, I was so angry. Not because of you, exactly, but because you represented everything I was afraid of." She looked up at me. Someone who didn't care about our social rules, who worked hard and succeeded on their own. "I spent my whole life trying to maintain this image, and you just were yourself." "Amanda," I started, but she held up her hand. "Let me finish. Last week, I overheard some women at the country club talking about us, about how the mighty Morrisons were just renters all along. I was mortified. But then one of them said something that stuck with me. She said, 'At least the new owner earned it honestly.' I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. The social circle wasn't as important as you thought, was it?" She shook her head, almost laughing. "God, no. They're all calling you a brilliant businesswoman now. The same people who used to whisper about you being a gold digger. People's opinions change like the wind," I said. "That's why I never cared about them in the first place." Amanda was quiet for a moment. "We found a new place. Smaller, but actually within our means. Dad's finally admitted he needs to scale back, start living more honestly. She met my eyes. I wanted to ask, would you consider selling us some of the furniture from the mansion? The pieces that have actual family history? I smiled, reaching into my bag. Actually, I had Emma draw this up. I handed her a document. It's a list of all the furniture and fixtures in the house. I'd like you to go through and mark what has genuine family significance. Those pieces are yours. Her eyes widened. But why? Because despite everything, that house holds your family memories. I'm going to renovate it, make it into something new, but you should keep the pieces that matter. Tears welled in Amanda's eyes, the first real emotion I'd ever seen from her. Thank you, she whispered. I don't deserve this kindness. Maybe not, I agreed, but it's not about deserving. It's about doing what's right. A week later, I stood in an empty mansion, sunlight streaming through the windows. The Morrisons had moved out early, leaving behind a letter from Amanda with the furniture list and a surprising addition, her grandmother's cookbook, filled with handwritten recipes and notes. These recipes made this house the home she'd written. Maybe they can do the same for its next chapter. Michael stopped by as I was going through the rooms, making notes for the renovation. You've changed them, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Amanda's actually working now, got a job at an event planning firm. Mom and Dad are selling their country club membership. I raised an eyebrow. Really? He nodded. Sometimes people need to lose everything to realize what really matters. He looked around the room. What are your plans for this place? I'm turning it into a boutique hotel, I said. Keeping the historical features but modernizing where needed. This place has too much character to be just another private residence. Michael smiled. From unwanted outsider to the owner transforming the family mansion into something new. That's quite a story. Life's funny that way, I agreed. As I locked up the mansion that evening, I thought about everything that had happened. I hadn't bought this place for revenge, but the outcome had changed more than just property ownership. It had shattered pretenses, forced honesty, and somehow, in the end, brought a kind of peace. Amanda and I would never be best friends, but we had reached an understanding. The Morrisons had lost their facade, but gained something more valuable, authenticity. And me? I had finally closed the chapter on my past with this family, not with bitterness, but with unexpected grace. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply living well and allowing others the chance to learn and grow. The mansion's keys felt right in my hand. It was time to begin its new story. She doesn't even belong here. It's humiliating. Amanda's voice sliced through the soft hum of conversation, halting everything. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, gone in an instant. My heart clenched. Across the room, my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, froze mid-turn of her cherished music box. Her small fingers hovered above the brass key, her eyes locked on the floor. The warmth of the living room evaporated, replaced by a suffocating stillness. I'm Emma, and I never imagined hearing words like that about my child, especially not from Amanda, my brother's new wife. Lily was diagnosed with autism at 4. She may experience the world through a different lens, but her heart? It's the most radiant thing I know. What did you just say? I asked, trying to steady the tremble in my voice. Amanda, draped elegantly on the edge of our parents' ornate sofa, like she was posing for a catalog shoot, sighed and rolled her eyes. Oh, come on, Emma. Someone had to say it. She just sits there, fiddling with that music box, barely saying a word. It's a party, not a therapy session. The air turned brittle. Conversations died mid-sentence. My brother, Michael, shifted in his seat, eyes glued to the floor. The silence from him hit harder than Amanda's cruelty. We'd grown up side by side in this house. We were a team. Now he wouldn't even defend his niece. She's family, my mom offered gently, though the conviction in her voice faltered. Conflict had never been her strength, especially not since Amanda entered our lives 6 months ago, all stilettos and sarcasm. I glanced at Lily. She still held the music box close, a delicate antique our grandmother had given her before passing. It was more than a keepsake, it was her anchor. Gran had been the one person who fully embraced Lily, who never saw her as broken, just beautifully unique. We're leaving, I said, rising. It's clear we're not welcome. I reached for Lily's hand, but she didn't budge. Instead, she did something none of us expected. She opened the music box. The soft, familiar melody filled the room, Over the Rainbow, Ron's favorite. But then Lily's voice rose gently to meet the notes, singing each line with haunting clarity. Her voice, usually barely above a whisper, carried through the stunned silence, every note tender, perfect. Amanda's smugness cracked. My mom's eyes glistened. Michael looked up at last, his expression stunned, equal parts guilt and awe. When the final note faded, Lily spoke, her voice quiet but certain. Ron taught me. She said music speaks when words can't. She also gave me keys. She reached inside the music box and pulled out a stack of sealed, time-worn letters. Amanda's voice snapped. What is that supposed to be? Letters, Lily said, holding them with care. From Gron, one for each of us. She said to give them out when the time was right. I think this is the time. One by one, Lily handed them out, first to my parents, then Michael, then me. She stopped in front of Amanda and looked up. There isn't one for you, she said plainly. Gron told me family is about who stays, not who marries in. Amanda flushed, caught between anger and disbelief. Michael opened his letter with shaky hands, his eyes scanning the page. Tears slid down his cheeks. She knew, he whispered. Gron knew we'd start to fall apart after she was gone. That some people would try to rewrite what family means. He looked at Amanda with fresh eyes, really looked at her, and said nothing. Across the room, my parents read their letter together, their hands clasped tight, their faces softened by sorrow and something deeper, recognition. I opened mine, the scent of Gron's perfume rising from the paper, her handwriting looping with familiar grace. My dearest Emma, by now things have changed. But family, real family, isn't about appearances or perfection. It's about love, loyalty, and seeing each other fully. Lily doesn't just see the world differently, she sees it more clearly. She sees hearts, not faces, intentions, not appearances. Trust her. I always did. There's one more thing in the music box. Something to remind everyone what really matters. Let her share it when she's ready. With all my love, Gron. I looked up just in time to see Lily reaching back into the music box. Her fingers closed around something hidden beneath the velvet lining, something she kept safe until now. Amanda stood abruptly, her voice brittle. You're letting a child manipulate you. She doesn't even function normally. But nobody responded. No one even looked at her. Every gaze was on Lily, standing tall in the middle of the room, her music box open, her courage unfolding with it. And in that still, sacred moment, we all understood. This was not the end of anything. It was the beginning. Lily pulled out a small, worn leather journal from a hidden compartment in the music box. The room remained silent as she opened it carefully, revealing pages filled with Gron's handwriting and something else. Photographs. Gron kept a diary, Lily said softly, her voice clear and steady. She wrote about everyone, about what she saw. She turned the pages gently, showing candid photos of our family through the years. Happy moments, difficult times, all captured through Gron's observant eyes. Then she stopped at a particular page. This is from 6 months ago, before Gron died. She held up a photo that made Amanda's face turn ghostly white. It showed Amanda at a cafe with another man, their hands intertwined across the table, taken just weeks before she married Michael. That's not what it looks like, Amanda stammered, but Lily wasn't finished. Gron wrote about that day, she continued, her finger tracing the words on the page. She saw you with him 3 more times. She wrote that she was worried about Michael, about what you might do to our family. Michael stood up slowly, his face a mixture of hurt and anger. Amanda? What is this? It's nothing. Amanda snapped, but her voice trembled. That old woman was crazy, following me around with a camera like some stalker. Gron wasn't crazy, Lily said firmly. She was protecting us, like she always did. She turned another page, revealing more photos, more entries. She wrote about how you made fun of me when you thought no one was listening. How you told Michael that keeping me in the family would ruin his image. My heart ached hearing this, but I couldn't take my eyes off my daughter. This little girl, who some people thought couldn't understand the world around her, had been carrying these truths, waiting for the right moment to protect our family. She also wrote about your plan, Lily continued, her voice growing stronger. About how you wanted to convince Michael to sell the family house after Gron died. She heard you on the phone with someone, talking about how much money you could make from the property. My parents gasped. The family home had been in our family for generations. The thought of selling it was unthinkable. That's enough, Amanda shouted, lunging for the diary, but Michael caught her arm, his face hard with realization. No, he said quietly, let her finish. Lily turned to the last page, where a final photo was carefully attached. It showed Amanda leaving a lawyer's office, dated just last week. Ron's friend Mrs. Peterson works there, Lily explained. She saw Amanda asking about how to transfer the house deed after marriage. The room erupted in chaos. Amanda was shouting denials, my parents were demanding explanations, but Michael just stood there, staring at the evidence of his wife's betrayal spread out before him. Why didn't you show us this sooner? He asked Lily quietly. My daughter looked at him with those wise eyes that saw so much more than people realized. Ron said timing matters. She said sometimes people need to show who they really are before the truth can help. I moved to stand behind Lily, placing my hands protectively on her shoulders. But she didn't need my protection anymore. She had grown stronger than any of us had realized. You don't understand what you're doing, Amanda hissed, grabbing her designer purse. You're ruining everything. No, Michael said, his voice firm. You did that yourself. He turned to Lily, kneeling down to her level. Thank you, sweetheart, for watching over us, just like Ron asked you to. Amanda stormed out, the door slamming behind her. The sound echoed through the house, marking the end of her presence in our family. My parents embraced Lily, their eyes filled with tears of gratitude and regret. We're so sorry, Mom whispered, for not seeing everything sooner, for not standing up for you stronger. But Lily just smiled, that beautiful, pure smile that lit up her whole face. Ron said family sometimes loses its way, she said, but love always brings them back home. She closed the music box gently, the familiar melody playing one last time. But there was still one more secret hidden inside, one final gift from Ron that would heal our family completely. The last part of the music box had a small folded paper and a tiny key. Lily carefully unfolded the paper and smoothed it out with her hands. It's Ron's real will, she said quietly. Michael leaned in, confused. But we already read the will months ago. Mom nodded. The lawyer handled it all after Gron passed. That wasn't Gron's real lawyer, Lily explained. Gron wrote that Amanda made her use someone else. But Gron kept the real will safe. She held up the key. This opens her safety deposit box at the old bank downtown. I remembered that bank. Gron had always used it, even when newer ones opened. Now I knew why. She was protecting our family, even after she was gone. The next morning, we all went to the bank. When the box opened, we found another letter from Gron and some legal papers that changed everything. The house, Mom said, her eyes wide. She read from the papers. Gron said it can never be sold. It belongs to a family trust, for Lily. Tears filled my eyes as I read Gron's letter. She had watched Lily grow, seen how special she was, and knew Lily was the right one to take care of our family's home and memories. Lily sees the truth where others only see differences, Gron wrote. She'll protect our home and keep our family together, just like she protected this will until the right time. Michael, who had started the process to divorce Amanda that morning, knelt beside Lily. You saved our home. You saved all of us. Lily smiled, a calm, knowing smile that reminded me so much of Gron. Gron said home isn't just a place, she said. It's where family remembers who they really are. In the months that followed, our family grew close again. The house became warm and full of laughter. Michael spent more time with Lily, and he began to see the world through her eyes. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing Gron had loved, Lily opened her music box again. As the melody played, she showed me a photo she had kept hidden until now. It was of Gron holding baby Lily, looking at her with love and pride. On the back, Gron had written, Some see her difference as a problem. I see it as her superpower. She'll show everyone that love is louder than words, and truth is brighter than how things look. Ron knew you needed time to believe in yourself, I told Lily, hugging her close. She knew you'd show the world your strength, your way. She said being different isn't wrong, Lily replied, her voice strong. It's just a better way of seeing things. When the real will was shown, Amanda's claims to the house and family estate were thrown out. She left quickly, and we didn't see her again. Michael was free to heal, and our family was stronger without her. Now the music box sits on the fireplace mantel. Lily plays it every evening. Its soft tune reminds us of love, courage, and how one quiet girl saved us all. Gron's love lives on, not just in the house, but in Lily. She showed us that family isn't about being perfect. It's about love, kindness, and standing up for what's right. And Lily, she keeps amazing us. We no longer hide her autism or feel ashamed of it. We celebrate it, because Gron was right. Lily's way of seeing the world makes our lives richer, stronger, and more beautiful than we ever imagined.